Hey, 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 come on in the room. Come on in the room. Welcome to the Inside Scoop with MGM, Marquita Green Motivates. I hope that you enjoy these segments. I miss coming on and giving an inside scoop. Earlier this summer, I was coming in and doing these videos maybe once a month, and then I went to every other week. And then schedule got crazy and things just didn't get put out there. But guess what? I am encouraged and motivated to bring you a little bit of an inside scoop into my world each and every week, at least for the month of July, and then we'll see what happens after that. I think it's so important that you understand the woman behind the post. We can post so much stuff and you see so much stuff on social media, and the question is this person legit? What is this person really talking about? Is this person really of substance? Are they really what they seem to be in their posts? But I'm here to tell you, anything that I post is organic. Anything I post, it comes from my heart. And you'll notice that my posts are sporadic, so they come at different times of the day. They all look different. And that's because I speak what is given to my spirit at the time in which it is given to me. And so I don't just post something for the sake of posting. I don't just post something for likes and giggles. I post because it's been laid on my spirit to post, because I believe that in that moment somebody needs what was dropped into me, and it's my obligation and my responsibility to share what was given to me. That is why I post. That is why I'm doing an inside scoop, because I want you to know that the things that come out of this mouth, the thoughts that come out of this mind, the things that you see even in images are things that were imparted into me and need to be released to you. And so now that we have taken some time to let everybody know that we are alive and we are here and we are ready to go, then I just encourage you to take a minute now that you're in the room, share this live with a loved one, share this video with a friend, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube or some other platform. Be sure to share this, because this inside scoop into MGM isn't just about me. It's not just about you, but it's about getting the word out to the masses, right? So let's jump on in. If you were with me last week, you know I shared a story about the process, and I shared how some things are more than meet the eye. And I specifically gave an encounter of how I relocated from Philadelphia to Florida and what that transition looked like and what it felt like. And if you really tuned in, you know I got a little teary eyed in the midst. I ain't gonna be teary eyed today. I didn't even expect that, but that's how you know that it's legit, that it's genuine, that it's authentic, and that it comes from my heart. Everything I speak comes from my heart, and it comes from a pure place. And I hope that you know that. And so today won't be any different. I don't expect any tears, but I do expect to give you a little inside scoop. Now, let me know if you notice that my background is a little different today. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's because I'm not home. Guess where I am? Philly, Philly, that is where I am from. Philly, Philly, that is where I am from. I have had the opportunity to travel from Florida to Philly just for a few days. I came in on Friday. Today, as you know, is now Tuesday. And so I've been here. I'll be here for another day. And I'm just excited to just reconnect with those loved ones who I don't get to connect with often. Those same individuals who I mentioned to you last week who saw me off from Philadelphia, right? I mentioned that my mom and my paternal grandmother was right there at my grandmother's house to see me and my girls pull out of Philadelphia. And then I mentioned that I went to Northern Virginia and was met by my dad, my older brother, and a sister. Well, I've been able to also visit with my dad and my older brother, my dad is still in Maryland, but he drove up to see me, because family is important. And sometimes we don't understand that. And sometimes we undervalue family. And so I just want to take a moment to just encourage you that no matter where you are, make sure that you're tapping into those relationships, no matter what they look like. If you have ordered your copy of Girl, Let's Get Over It Together, then you see I talk about daddy issues. If you have not gotten your copy, then I encourage you to go on over to www.transformandsoar.com/book. I will drop that in the comments. I want you to go over and get a copy of that book, because there are so many things that we face in life. There are so many situations that we deal with, whether it's separation of self, loss of self, separation of relatives, where we lose relatives in the way of death, or we lose them in the way of some type of disappointment or some unforgiving circumstance, and we just let them walk away and we don't heal those pains. When we lose somebody in death, sometimes we don't have the sense of closure. We don't have an opportunity to really rectify our wrongs, right? And so we go beyond that, living with a lot of guilt of, I wish something would have been different. I wish I would have changed something. Well, we don't have to live that way, because we understand that today is an opportunity for us to tap into those relationships and to make some wrong things right, to make some bitter places better, to make some things change and shifted in our lives and in our relationships. And so I just want to encourage you to do what it takes to get it done. I didn't even know my dad was coming up here. And when I found out on Sunday morning, I was sitting in a church service and he texted me and said he was on his way and he was going to be here for less than 24 hours. Well, who knows that I made it my business to see him with less than a few hours notice. I made sure that although I had some things scheduled for the day, although I had some things really planned out specifically on Sunday, I made sure that I made time to spend a few hours with my dad. Relationship is important. We talk about how daddy issues can tend to form our relationships, our intimate relationships as we go throughout life, especially as women, but men as well. But especially as women, our relationships with our fathers is oftentimes that relationship. It's that, I like to say, it's the horizontal relationship that impacts our vertical relationship, right? And I'll talk more about that another time. But what I'm saying here is we got to get this right, y'all. We got to get this right. And maybe it's not daddy issues for you, but maybe it's mommy issues. Maybe you had a mother who abandoned you, who rejected you at some point, and you didn't know how to handle that. You didn't know how to get beyond that. This is the time, this is the season to say, I am no longer going to allow those things to damage me. I am no longer going to allow those things to take over me. I am no longer going to allow those things to overwhelm my mind, because guess what? The battle in the mind impacts your spirit, man. It impacts your physical health. And so we need to make sure that we are protecting our mind, because it is from the mind that things form in the heart. And we know that out of the heart is where the issues of life flow. And so we want to make sure that we're not holding on to things here that are flowing, that are impacting every area of our lives. They're impacting our parenting relationships. They're impacting our professional relationships. You know, we can't have good relationships with our coworkers or our superiors because we're holding on to some other issues that came out of us that we didn't quite understand and that we didn't quite know how to reconcile or get beyond. And so my encouragement today is, if you have any issues with your parenting structure, with the way you were raised, maybe you were raised by a grandparent, that's okay. Everybody's circumstances are different, but it doesn't mean that we shy away. It doesn't mean that we turn into a bubble. It doesn't mean that we continue to go through this negative cycle over and over and continue to infect. At some point, we've got to say, wait a minute, let me stop. Let me get to the root of it. Let me figure out what's going on. Let me figure out why I respond in this way. Let me figure out why I do things this way. And let me shift some things up, and let me be willing to do something different. It is when you identify those mommy daddy issues. It is when you tap into how you were raised and what was going on and how those things have impacted you going forward, that you begin to do a new work. I'm reminded all day, and those of you who are on my email list, you may have gotten an email to this effect, but I'm reminded of the story of Lot's wife, where they were sent to go to a new city, and they were sent to go do a new thing, and they were sent to go to a new place. And the Bible says it told them not to look back and not to turn around, or else there would be some destruction. Well, Lot's wife decided that she was going to turn back. And the moment that she turned back, she turns into a pillar of salt. As I was thinking about that parable today, I was thinking that there are some circumstances where it is important to look back. And so I think there's a fine line, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit because, as you know, I've already mentioned that I'm here in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, right? Well, it has been a very impactful several days for me for a number of reasons. But in particular, I was able to get to the root of some things. I was able to understand some things a little bit differently. Why? Because I came back. I came back to the place of the pain. I came back to the place of the hurt. I came back to the people who can help me dissect some things. You know, living in Florida, and if you have not listened to last week's message, I encourage you to go to my Facebook page and find the video and watch it, because I talk about relocating and shifting a situation in life. But what happens is, in Florida, it's me, it's my husband, it's my girls. But we don't have any family members there. We don't have any relatives there, that were the pillar as I was growing up. I do have relatives in the city I'm in now, but I've only been in that city for 2 years. So for 13 years, because remember, I moved 15 years ago. For 13 years, I was in a city with absolutely no family. We didn't even know a soul when we stepped foot in Tallahassee, Florida. When we moved to Jacksonville, we realized that we had family in the area, but we didn't even know it. We may have been connecting over the years, but we had no idea. It wasn't until, well, let me go back. So I mentioned that because when I'm there, I'm kind of isolated, right? I'm in a bubble, which means my thought processes, my thinking patterns are based on my surroundings. They're based on what's there and what I know. And so the people that I have to talk to and dissect some of my emotions with, they understand, but may not have all of the pieces of the puzzle, right? And so when I came home, and as I've been talking to my brothers and my mom and even my dad, amongst some other people, but those specific people, I was able to pour out my heart in some areas, and there were some things that were poured back into me, and that's a lesson in and of itself, that you've got to be willing at some point to be vulnerable. You've got to at some point be transparent and be willing to open up. If you don't open up, how is somebody supposed to know exactly how you feel? How is somebody supposed to know how they can help you if you don't communicate, one, that you need help, and two, how you need to be helped? Keeping in mind that everybody is different. Everybody needs something different. Everybody receives something different. If you're not explaining to somebody what it is that you need, what it is that you expect, how can you ever expect them to meet it? My husband and I often talk about something that we heard many, many years ago. But essentially, uncommunicated expectations breed destructions. And I've said this many times. Uncommunicated expectations breed destruction. Why is that? It's because a lot of times we walk around expecting somebody to show up for us in a specific way. We walk around expecting for somebody to do something for us that we haven't even told them that we want them to do. We expect for somebody to respond in a certain way, but we've never communicated that to them. But because we're all different, because we're all made up different, remember, the mindset, the word says that we are formed in God's image, but he formed each and every one of us uniquely. It talks about how we're all members of one body, but we have different purposes. And so when you understand that we're all members of the same body, but we're all different, it tells us that there's a unique setup within you. There's something powerful within you that's not going to be the same structure of the person beside you. It's not going to be the same structure as your spouse. It's not going to be the same structure as your parents. It's not going to be the same structure as your children, your siblings, your grandparents, your aunties, your nieces, your cousins, your besties, your homeboys, your nobody. Because everybody is different. And so when you understand that everybody is different, and you understand that everybody needs something different, everybody expects something different, everybody responds differently, then you begin to understand that you've got to meet people at the point of their need, right? When you begin to understand that, then you say, well, how do I do that? But you cannot do that without, let's go back, without being open and transparent and letting somebody into your world. So for those that say, I've been hurt too many times and I've got this wall up, we've got to let that wall down. We cannot overcome mommy daddy issues if we still got this wall built up saying, I'm not going to let anybody see me. I don't want to let anybody see me. I don't want anybody to come into my space. We've got to say, time out for all of that. It doesn't matter who sees me weak. It doesn't matter who sees me vulnerable, because guess what? God's power shows up in your weakness, right? So when you understand that, you know that it's okay to be weak, because it is when you are weak that He is strong. And when He is strong, nothing is impossible. And when you understand that, then you walk forward knowing that you are doing what you are called and created to do. So I'm saying all of this to say that once I got here, I got into a place where I said, I've got to be willing to unleash some things. I've got to be willing to share some things. I've got to be willing to open up. And as I'm saying, well, I feel this way, and this made me feel like this. My brother's like, well, you shouldn't feel that way because, and the other brother is saying, well, you shouldn't feel that way because, and my mom gets home and she's like, oh, well, let me tell you about this. And then somebody says, well, let me tell you about my experience. And then the walls begin to come tumbling down, right? This happened because I came back, because I took a moment to look back instead of forging forward. And instead of going forward and saying, I am going to move in this way, in this vein, I said, let me take a step back before I say anything and before I do anything out of position. Let me go back. Let me take myself back in time. Let me take myself back in space. I could have been back in Jacksonville already, but I self-selected to stay over a few days. And that is because I knew that there was something that I needed to receive. I knew that there was something that I needed to be poured into me. And that very thing was poured into me on yesterday after I would have already been gone. But it's because I came back and I was willing to look back. I was willing to say, this is how I feel and this is how I think it should have been done. And I was able to get some clarity on some things. But I came back to the very place where the hurt started. I am physically in the same city where I had these thoughts and feelings of how things should have been done or shouldn't have been done or could have been different or whatever. The places where the pain began to come and I didn't know how to articulate it, I didn't know how to explain it, and I kept it inside. I am now back at that place. And at that place, when you go back to the place where you look back a little bit, you're able to really then unplug and root up some things that are holding you back, the things that are pulling you away from purpose, the things that are blocking you. Because how many of you know, think about a garden, right? You're growing a garden and maybe it's flowers. I don't grow any, but just imagine with me that planting season. You're planting some things and there are always weeds in there, but if you don't trim and if you don't pluck and if you don't pull up the things that are ripe, then it's just going to grow up, grow up, grow up, and it's basically going to become like a jungle, right? It's going to be some things that aren't good for the growth process. There are going to be some things that hinder the growth process. It's not going to be a neat and clean pattern. It's not going to flourish the way you want it to. But that's what happens in our lives. From the moment that we are born, some things are implanted within us. Some seeds are planted and they begin to grow. What you do with that as you're growing and developing into an infant and into a toddler and into a teen and into a young adult and into an adult, those seeds and the decisions begin to shift and shape what happens, which direction you go, and how the things are going. Sometimes something can grow that way, or maybe it grows straight up, or maybe some things grow in opposite directions. It's because of what you did with the seeds. When those battles came, when those hard situations came, and the things were rising up against you, how did you deal with them? How did you handle those times? If you did not handle them effectively, then the growing process is going to be unstructured. It's going to be a little tainted and tattered, and we don't want that. And that's why it's important to go back and to look back and see, let me see how some things have shaped my life. Let me understand where the root of the pain comes from. Let me see if there's anything that I can do different so I can pluck off the weeds. I can pluck off the weeds and I can allow myself, I can allow my emotions, I can allow my mental state, I can allow everything to grow in the way that it was designed to grow. That I can be the person that I was called and designed to be. But it can only happen if we actually go back and look at the garden and tend the garden. look at the garden, and then tend the garden. That's what today is about. I'm encouraging you to take a moment to just think back. Take a moment to look back on those painful experiences, to look back on the times where things hurt you and where people upset you. What did that look like for you? What is at the root of it? And when you begin to understand a little bit of that, then you're able to do some things a little bit differently. You're able to walk a little bit differently. You're able to heal a little bit differently, maybe a lot of it differently. Whatever the case may be, I'm encouraging you to go back. I am so thankful that I've had this time and opportunity to just dissect and unwind from the things that have been holding me back from moving forward, that I'm able to dissect and pull off the layers of things. Because what I realized is that there was one thing piled on top of another thing, piled on top of another thing, and then another thing. And there were things that were never addressed, things that were never dealt with. But how many of you know that that's where destruction also comes? So remember, I said earlier that destruction comes from uncommunicated expectations. Destruction also comes from layered pain. When we layer pain and we don't begin to uncover those layers, all we're doing is, what is it? I don't know the saying, and I don't want to spend time thinking about it, but we're doing more harm essentially than good by just piling on. And so in this season, we don't want to pile on because we're going to a new place. God is moving each and every one of us into a new dimension. He's saying that there is something greater that is coming for us. There is something greater on the inside of us. There is something pulling us closer to Him and pulling us closer to our destiny and closer to our purpose and closer to our calling. But in order for us to walk it out, there are some things that we have to understand. And the first step is going to be looking back and saying, what are those things? Acknowledging that those things exist and then creating a plan to get through those things and overcome those things. So my encouragement to you today is just to spend some time looking back, whether it is figuratively or physically, but spend some time physically going to the place or emotionally going to a place. That's what I meant by figuratively or physically. But spend some time allowing yourself to think back. Now, I don't want you to, what happened with Lot's wife, there's a difference in looking back in order to better yourself and versus looking back because you want to go back. I'm not encouraging you to go back to a place. I'm not encouraging you to pick up your old habits. I'm not encouraging you to pick up your negative ways. I'm not encouraging you to seek disaster in your life. What I am encouraging you to do is to plow forward. What I am encouraging you to do is to really understand how you got to the place you are and then begin to create a plan of how not to ever go back, right? But in order to create the plan of how not to go back, you have to understand what that place is, what that place looks like, what that place did to you, and your why you never want to go back, okay? I hope you got all of that. So that is the inside scoop for today. There is healing that comes from your pushing forward. There is healing that comes from looking back and being really willing and wanting to mend some things. Me, again, coming home was a godsend. I did not understand at the point that the trip was planned months ago. I didn't understand all that would unfold. But that's why you have to be open to what God wants to do in your life. You have to be open to what He's speaking to your spirit. You have to be open to just allowing yourself to see new things and experience new things and to take on new challenges. You know the saying of insanity. Insanity is essentially doing the same thing over and over and expecting to get a different result. Well, guess what? If we continue to do the same things over and over and not do anything different, then nothing is ever going to change. But when you get to the point that you say, I don't want that old life and I don't want the pattern of behaviors to continue in the way that they've been moving, then you begin to do something different. You begin to shake some things up. You begin to make different, better decisions. You begin to shift some things. And that's how we grow. And that's how we move into purpose. And so a lot of what I am encouraging you to do are things that I've done for myself, things that I'm willing to do. And in fact, I have created a coaching opportunity to help coach women, wives, and mothers to walk through these very things. When I'm saying to go back, somebody may be saying, well, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that feels like. I don't understand what you mean by figuratively and physically go back. Let's talk about it. If you want to understand a little bit more about the story and the steps that I've overtaken, then I encourage you to head on over to www.transformandsoar.com. It's in the comments. Transform and soar. So it's TRANSFORMANDSOAR.com. Go on over there and get a little bit of information about me, and then schedule a call with me. If you want to schedule a call, transformandsoar.com/clarity, because it will be a clarity call where I give you the 4 soar steps to move into your purpose. I am helping wives and mothers to reconnect with their purpose while excelling in their role as a wife and mother. And you don't have to be both. You can be one or the other, or both. But the goal is that women are pushing forward, that the women who have put ourselves on the back burner are now saying, I want to move forward. The women who felt like they'd lost themselves, I didn't know who I was, I didn't know where I belonged, I didn't know where I fit in. A lot of that is because we have these issues that we haven't dealt with. We haven't looked back long enough to understand what lies beneath the surface. We really don't know who we are because we haven't done the work to figure it out. That season is over. In this new season that we're walking into, it is time to transform from who you have been into who you were created to be. And it is the time and season to soar into your total destiny and the complete purpose for which you were called. And that is what I'm here to help you with. So let's connect. You can DM me, but definitely check out the website, order your book. The book, I referenced it, is Girl, Let's Get Over It Together. My story is about marriage, but there are other stories just about loss in general, loss of people, loss of situations, loss of self, loss of virginity. It's loss of so many things that many of us have experienced in life. And while the specifics of the story may not hit at home, I guarantee that one of the stories in the book will hit home. I guarantee it. I guarantee that the same pain that was felt and experienced by the stories in the book will resonate with you on some level. It has to, because it's a universal thing. Loss is a universal thing, and that we as women sometimes don't know how to overcome or get over. And so that is able to shift in this season. And so my encouragement is just that you tap in to who you are and get ready to do something different. So I'm willing and ready and able and wanting to help you to transform and soar. I just need you to be ready and to click the link and tap in. All right, all right, all right. Looking forward to seeing you on the other side. Well, this has been your Inside Scoop for the day. I have been excited to share with you, and I look forward to what comes out next week. See you soon. Peace.